from now until we get into heaven, we're going to fall short on a day in and out basis. We're going to need the blood of Jesus to cover us and the grace of Jesus to reconcile us back to him.
This is The Uncomfortable Truth. Hello and welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. We appreciate you being here. Hit those buttons at the bottom. Help us reach more people for Jesus. Today we have two wonderful guests with us, Joe Lane and Eddie Maldonado from the organization Young Life. Joe, if I knew nothing... Oh, we have Obi here too. Obi, welcome to the show. Obi Baker, welcome to the show.
First time on the show.
Joe, if I knew nothing about Young Life and I was in an elevator with you, well, I said, Young Life, never heard of that. What would you tell me that it is? We have about 12 seconds before I get off on my floor.
So I would try to gauge if you're a Christian or a non-Christian in a matter of 3 seconds.
So you would judge me really quick.
Yeah. So I would say, I'd say, hey, we're a group of adults who cares about kids and wants to walk alongside them, and we're geared towards the kids that kind of want nothing to do with church. Nothing to do with faith, or just are on the fringes, aren't connected with a church youth group or anything like that. Those are the kids we want to reach. So we have caring adults, college-age students that try to go into their worlds instead of asking them to come to something that we're doing. Mm-hmm. We enter into the mess with them. So.
Awesome. That's
very cool.
That was good. I think you hit 12 seconds. I was counting in my head. All right. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you're connected to Young Life. Eddie.
Okay, so I'm the area director, or not the area director. You're the area director. I'm the committee. I'm the committee chair.
We said send the paycheck to Eddie now.
No, it's okay. He has to raise half of his support. I don't. Okay. That's too much pressure for me. Okay, so I'm the interim committee chair after not being committee chair for a number of years. I've been involved for a long time, but I think the easy answer is it's an organization that's not like in your face with being a church organization. It's really outreach. It's Christian outreach. And so my role in it is to support what happens on the ground level with the volunteer leaders and the people that are actually doing the work. So behind the scenes, we run a committee, which is like a whole other thing where we're doing fundraising, event planning. We're making sure that the lights are on at the office and stuff like that. So like anything Joe needs, he'll come to us and go, hey, we need to raise this to send kids to camp. Camp is a huge thing for us. And so my job is to support what's going on in the ministry.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And so is Young Life like a FCA, like a nationwide type organization?
Yeah. So Young Life's in all 50 states. Excuse me. If my voice sounds like terrible, it's because I slept in a tent in my backyard with my son on Saturday when it got real chilly. So it's
that'll do something to you.
Those are good nights, though.
I'll be all right.
It's a great night.
Young Life's in all 50 states and almost in 100 foreign countries now, which is crazy.
Wow.
And it just depends, what city it's in and where there's staff, where there's local committee that are kind of championing it. But it's similar to FCA in that regard.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So your job as Young Life area director entails what?
Yeah, so we're technically Greater Longview, so I kind of oversee all the ministry that happens in this part of Texas. Right now, we're just in Longview ISD, so we're in Judson Middle School and Foster Middle School.
Okay.
But my job is to kind of recruit leaders, train leaders. I'm going into the schools myself with our volunteer team and kind of overseeing how we kind of our strategy of reaching kids, inviting them to things we're doing. So a little bit of behind the scenes, but also kind of front lines work as well.
So there's not like a brick and mortar location where some of the kids may congregate. Y'all create these events or go to the schools, and that's where y'all have your what I mean. I get, when y'all have an event,
sure.
is it you guys just speaking into them? I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah, so the first step, what we call is contact work, which is we kind of model it after Jesus' ministry, where he was always on the move, right? Jesus very rarely was like, hey, I'm sitting up on this throne and I want you to come to me.
Right. He was a busy dude.
He was in the mess. He was going from town to town and healing people and preaching and all this stuff. So we say, hey, where are the lost kids? Well, they're at the school. And if they're not going to come to us, we got to come to them.
Right.
So we have a really good relationship with the schools that we're in, and they'll let us come to school lunches before and after school. We get to go to sporting events, but the whole thing is we're showing up. We're trying to remember kids' names. That's an important one. That's if you meet a kid named Billy, and then the next week you say, "Hey, what's up, Billy?" and then you'll see their eyes, and they're just shocked that you remember their name.
It's a lost art that a lot of people suck at, including myself. It's like I was meeting with a girl the other day, and I asked her name, and 5 minutes later, I had to swallow my pride and ask her name again and apologize. And I felt terrible, but people, their name's a name for a reason, right?
Yeah.
He calls us by our name. They want to hear their name.
Yep.
Adults too.
Yeah.
They want to be noticed and recognized.
I think it's a blessing. Like there's guys in ministry that if they hear somebody's name one time, 10 years down the road, they'll be like, "Oh, that's so and so." And I was like, "How did you know that?" I can't remember. Like there's people I see every single day. I can't remember the name.
I think part of it is we're so distracted all the time. She told me your name. My phone's vibrating in my pocket. I got somebody texting me. They need this, this, and this, and this. And then she tells me her name again. And then my phone's vibrating again, and it's ringing. And like, we're just distracted. Our minds are distracted all the time. Back to Young Life. You said you raise or you train leaders, or you're looking for leaders. Are you looking for student leaders, or are you looking for leaders to help you in Young Life with kids?
It's all over the place demographically. We have leaders right now that are like, I don't even know how old the oldest one is. I mean, he's probably 60s. 60s, yeah, in his 60s. I think the older the leader is, strangely enough, the more attractive they are as a presence to the kids. It's like you'll see them and the kids will just be like, they're on it. And it's just,
That's cool.
And it happened with me too. Like when I first got involved with Young Life, I was in my mid 30s. I hadn't been around teenagers since I was a teenager. And then like, just right away, I'm blown away with, okay, so personal space is not a thing. They're in your business. Like they're right there, And,
what is this age group that you're generally dealing with?
Yeah. So we, Young Life at large is, we are trying to reach adolescents. So that's anywhere from 6th grade to
37
college kids. Yeah. Now it's like that number keeps going up. It's primarily right now for us, we're in the middle school.
11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
That age.
Yep.
Very important age.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, when we're doing this, when we're going into the schools, we're remembering names. And for me, I have to pull my phone out almost immediately and like, okay, Billy, 6th grader, has a mohawk.
Yeah.
Just like,
that's cool.
Talk to me. Cause I have to, if I don't do it right away, I'm going to, forget. And, so the next kind of step that we invite kids to is we have these events called Club, which is just kind of a fun, it's really an event geared towards non-Christians. So, currently we have it at the Boys and Girls Club. We kind of try to have it at neutral sites. Not that we couldn't have it in a church, but for some kids, that's just not the best, image for them. And so we have Club. We don't sing worship songs. We sing kind of karaoke songs from.
There's a Young Life playlist on Spotify.
Yeah,
and I will listen to it still all the time.
It might be some Taylor Swift, and but it's songs that they know. We play some crazy games, but at the end of the night. We feed them, and at the end of the night, we just have a simple 10-minute talk about who Jesus is. We don't go way into the weeds. We're just like, hey, we want you to know who Jesus is. You hear about God and Jesus in so many different ways, and you have an image in your mind that is probably not right. So we're like, hey, how do we give them the facts so that they can decide on their own, is this somebody they want to follow? So that's kind of our event type part of Club.
Very cool. Very cool.
You've mentioned the church a few times, and these kids, like you're going to them. You're not trying to get them in a church. And I know it's probably kind of one of the basis of what Young Life is. Why do you feel like the church is scary or almost like this unattainable thing for kids nowadays?
Yeah, I just think, I think a typical Wednesday night youth group like the way that we set them up, and all of them look different, but it attracts a certain type of kid, right? The kids that maybe they've grown up in church, or they go with their friends and they think it's cool, but like really, unless somebody comes and invites somebody to youth group, like how are they going to get there? Do they know about it? Are they going to feel loved and accepted, you know, when they get there? That's the big thing. Like there's some churches around here that are doing awesome jobs with their leaders, and they're pursuing kids, remembering names. And, but if relationship isn't central in this, then, it's just not as appealing. You know, kids are, you can't entertain that.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I mean, they're going into a situation where they don't know anyone, or they may know one person. Are they welcomed? Are they? And you're right. A lot of churches do a fantastic job, but a lot of churches don't.
Right.
You know, they really struggle to get that connection, especially in that initial most important part.
Sure.
You know, which is like right when they're coming. I mean, that's when you gotta grab them and love them, you know, and show them that you love them. So that's awesome that you guys are just taking just a different philosophy on getting connected with these kids. I love that.
We've seen, like, the craziest thing is we have seen literally, like, I have watched people get their first Bible, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in church. I had a long wilderness time away from church, but like to be there when somebody's handed their first Bible.
First Bible.
That's Bible.
Cool.
And not well, like we do Bible presentation at our church. Sure. This is not that. This is very, very, very crazy. Because the way it's introduced is it's introduced personally. Like the best club talks are, this is a personal experience that I had, and this is how this relates to Jesus, and this is what Jesus means to me. Like, I think that if you extend that in, you see, like I've seen, Joe can attest to this, like I've seen kids lead their parents to church.
Yeah.
And then you see families coming through, and it's like, it's something that having been active in church and church ministry for a while now myself, it's like Young Life has a recipe that is just, it's just a special thing. It's very different. My takeaway the first time I went to a club, when I met my wife, she was a volunteer leader. When I walked away that first night, how different would my life have been if somebody had paid attention and really cared, and not like immediately gotten into, well, you're doing this wrong and this is your problem. You know what your problem is? Sure. Like they were like, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? And then like it was a relationship forward. Relationship is central to it. It's an amazing thing to watch. It's really cool to be around.
I think if we take a step back for church, and you know, I grew up in church. You grew up in church. Joe, did you grow up in church?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Eddie grew up in church. When we walk into a church, we know how it's supposed to feel because we've been doing it our whole life. But the equivalent of a kid walking into a Wednesday night youth group there's 100 people there, they're singing, raising their hands, closing their eyes, saying words they've never heard before. It'd be like one of us walking into the forest. What are the, like the healing churches and stuff, like how, like, I don't know if you've ever been to one, but if you have, it's like, if you've never been to one.
Super charismatic.
Super charismatic. Yeah.
You gotta grab those snakes. Like when they bring the snakes out, you really gotta grab the snakes. You can't play around. Like they're real snakes. Like,
it'd be like one of us walking into there and like, oh my, like culture shock.
Turn around and walk out.
I'm sure that's how some kids feel.
Or like a middle school cafeteria. Like as an adult, you're just like, what am I doing here?
I feel times so out of place.
There's still times when I'm driving up to the middle school and I'm just like, what, like I could go do something. I could get some lunch right now. Let me turn this car around. Like I don't need to. And you just feel, you feel out of place. And the cool thing about what we're doing with Club is, these leaders have already built relationships with kids at the school, and then they're saying, hey, come to this event with me. It's not just like, there's already that connection. So when a kid's showing up, there are times where kids show up for the first time, we don't know them, but mainly it's like, oh man, I've been praying that this kid was going to come for a couple weeks now, and he finally came to our event. And so it kind of takes away that awkward point,
So how many kids do you typically have at a club?
Yeah. So we started Club last spring, and I would say on average we have about 30 kids that come. So 30 kids that.
And y'all are really only targeting 2 to 3, 4 campuses?
Yeah, right now we're just at 2 of the middle schools, and if anybody that wants to come from the other middle schools, we're not going to be like, hey, sorry,
Right.
You know,
Wait, which middle school?
where are
do
you
go?
at? Sorry.
Is the reason that you're not marketing is not the word, but like just infiltrating some of these other schools, to plant seeds and to try? Is it a lack of staffing? Is it a lack? What is the reason that you're not coming to Hallsville, going to White Oak, going to some of these other schools?
I think a lot of it has to do with like wanting to do a good job and be consistency, right? Consistency is a key with it. Part of it is there's an access thing where you have to have a champion with you on campus.
Gotcha.
One of like
What's a champion?
like somebody who is a Young Life believer that's going to come and say, Joe, like, hey,
This is
Joe,
worth it.
I'm a principal here, and then we have one campus where we had this guy, Danny, who's just unbelievable. But like the process to get into a school, it's not as easy as just show up. It's like, hey, I'm here to hang out. And they're like, yeah, that's skeptical. We're not sure what you're, and then you have to have somebody on the inside. And I think that to me has been the most eye-opening thing of interacting with the schools is if you have somebody inside, like a secretary or a principal or a vice principal or a teacher, like that's what limits it. Like that, like you could go show up, but like the trick is we want to be consistent and we want to repeat it and be regularly present on campus and recognizable. And so if you can't have somebody there 3 of the 6 weeks or whatever, like 3 weeks out of 6 weeks, like you kind of question, okay, can we build something here and build relationships the way we need to?
Yeah.
So when did you get started?
Yeah, so we kind of restarted ministry in the last few years. We were primarily in Hallsville back in 20.
Yeah, like 15, 16, 13.
Yeah, 2015. And then there was some staff transition, and it just kind of took a while for things to kind of launch back up again. And so we've been going consistently for about 2 years now.
Joe came on board. This is year number 2, right?
Yeah, entering year number 2. We moved from North Dallas. We needed to get out of the rat race, and this has been awesome to
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
get everywhere in 15 minutes or less is a dream.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and it's just, and kind of to piggyback of what Eddie was saying, to get into new campuses, we have to have the leader base to do it. And there's, more campuses, more funding that comes with that. You might have to hire new staff to oversee some other things. So there's just a bunch of different factors and just the timing. Like you want somebody that's on the, an administration or some teachers that are like, hey, we really want to see this happen. How can we get on board with this? So
like 2 years ago, you kind of started rolling in your mind. If everything were to just go fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
5 years from now, what does it look like? What do you picture from a goals standpoint, from a just East Texas, kids just really getting on board with Young Life?
Man, I would love to see all the middle school. We have one more middle school in Longview that we want to represent it at Forest Park. And then the cool thing is these kids are graduating into the high school. So that's a natural kind of moving up with those kids.
Right.
So I'd love to see Longview really materialize. And we live in Pine Trees, so that's kind of there's skin in the game over there too, and there's interest, and would love to see Pine Tree kind of take off as well. And then
Hallsville and White Oak are a natural progression.
Yeah, it just keeps, the goal is that we would just keep, growing outwards, and I think it would be awesome to see in Hallsville again.
I look at it like the number of kids we send to camp is super important. Like Tyler, the big brother Tyler, Tyler's the longest running consecutive club in the whole Young Life organization.
Yeah. Is it really?
And, yeah. Tyler's, it's
been going consistently since the 40s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wonder what they were singing in the 40s. Probably wasn't Bon Jovi.
I don't know what Sinatra. But the goal is
a sock hop.
The goal is that we continue to grow, but with that we want to be sustainable. We don't want to grow too fast, and then we're not doing good ministry anywhere. And but that's the goal, is that we'd see all the if we get back into Hallsville, ETBU's got a ton of college students that we can try to pull from, and we have Laterno students that are starting to get involved. So it's a whole big puzzle piece that we're trying to pray through and figure out and trust the Lord in. So
Well, I feel like that he'll make those connections.
Yeah.
You know, it's super cool to think about how connections happen. You know, I mean, like Shane and I, we are leaders in the young adult ministry at Mauberley. And so, there's a lot of Laterno and ETBU students that are in there every week. And, you know, I would say that's 75% of the kids there's probably 50 kids there every week. And the vast majority are ETBU and Laterno kids that are just awesome kids. I would imagine some of those kids would be just stoked to be, you know, on board with something like you guys are doing.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I just think about the connections. You know, I mean, it's neat to see how God, you know, creates divine appointments and puts people in your life that can help further his kingdom. It's just really, we've seen it here. We've seen it, you know, obviously in our lives through our churches. And it's awesome to meet with people who have a similar goal but are going about it in a completely different way.
Sure.
I love that. You know, it's like there's not one way to skin a cat. You know, you can do it in a lot of different ways.
It's really neat. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to be a leader in Young Life, what does that process look like for them?
Yeah. So we kind of have each semester we have an 8-week leader training, which is kind of, I call it like you get to date the ministry a little bit. Yeah. Like you're not signing your life away in blood or anything like that. But we meet for like an hour on a Sunday afternoon. And it's really just to take it slow of like, hey, how's your relationship with Jesus? First off, you know, like, are you spending time with him? Do you know what the gospel is? You know, we really slow that process because we've thrown leaders in way too quickly and it's not gone well.
Right. Probably don't tend to hang on very long.
No. And you get to kind of see through that process, like who's really bought into, like we're in the middle, we're probably in week 5 or 6 of one for this fall. And at the end of it, we both kind of get to put our hands together and say, hey, are you in? And there's some people that go through it and I'm like, hey, this might not be the best fit for you, but you've been trained in some really cool ways. Like wherever you're supposed to be, go do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our process right now. If somebody wants to be a leader. So.
All right, cool. We're going to end that podcast right here. We're going to jump back into the next one. We're going to talk about some things like why is Young Life needed? We're going to get into a little bit of the weeds of where are we failing as parents, or where are we failing as Christians and reaching out to our community. One of the things there that I was thinking about is we have this Bible Belt community, but that doesn't mean that everybody knows Jesus.
Yep.
I think there's like 500 churches in this area. There's a lot, but there's a lot of lost out there. So we're going to talk about why.
Sure.
Remember Love God? No, that's the wrong podcast.
You went to the wrong one.
I went to the wrong podcast. Go kick the day in the face.
There you go.
And we'll catch you on the next one. But love God too.